So the model that we created is very similar to these towers, but we just need to change the profiles. So what we did here was we selected the level and held our control key and our shift key down at the same time to click on it and drag it up in order to copy that level. And then once we copied the levels up and decided on the heights based on each one of these profiles in the tower, we selected that level and then picked set to set that plane current and picked the viewer here so that inside this viewer we could start to draw these ellipse shapes and create the curved pieces that are coming out around the tower. Once we did that, so once we created the levels and then on each level set those levels current, use the viewer to draw our ellipse, we can hold our control key down, select all those different profiles on those different levels, and then pick create form. By picking create form, we can establish this shape in this tower. If you click out in space and put your pointer close to the tower, you can select here the tab key so that you can grab the mass and click on it and then pick X-ray so that we can kind of see through it. At that point, you're able to see where these different profiles are. They kind of come through the building there. Okay? So you can modify those by selecting the mass using the tab key if you need to tab through the surfaces and grab the mass, and then picking edit profile. When you click edit profile, it brings you into here. Select which profile you want to edit. Using the tab key, I can select that profile and I'm ready to redraw it. Now I could go to the viewer and actually see inside the viewer which one that is. If I use these little grips, I could make it bigger or smaller or redraw it all together, then use the green check mark to modify the mass. Highlight the whole mass again to turn the X-ray off, or add edges or add profiles. Adding profiles, you would then add more slices of these ellipse. Adding an edge would add one of these lines that goes from top to bottom to give you more flexibility to use those little grips to modify the mass. So now we can save the file and load it into the project. I'm going to override the one that I had in there. But if you didn't have one, you'd have a dialog box. I deleted the one that we put in, so I'm going to come over here in the project browser and drag it out into the drawing again because it's updated, and there it is. So now that we have the shape of it, which is different than these, and you can tweak it for your project, we can create mass floors. That's one way. So here I'm going to go ahead and click on this mass itself, and then up here I'll pick mass floors. And so there are only 2 floors, so I can click on level 1 and level 2 and pick OK. You see it only creates 2. So we need to go to one of these elevations, like the north elevation or the east elevation, and create several floors that will represent these white level or pieces. So the fastest way, I think, to do this is to copy these levels. Okay, so my options bar was at the bottom, And so I had to right click and pick dock at the top because it was docked at the bottom. So you can right click and put it to the top or the bottom. If you select a level and then pick copy, you want to make sure there's a check mark in multiple. Then you can decide on how far between each one of these levels that we're going to create as you make your way up to the top here. You don't need this many. You might make it equal spaces or not. It's up to you. It's your design. And so now I can go to the View tab and pick Plan Views, Floor Plan, and select all of these by holding my Shift key down so that I can create floor plans of these copied levels. Over here, I only have level 1 and level 2, but now they're all going to be here in this list. I can go back to the 3D view and select the mass, pick mass floors, and then check all of these. So you can hold your Shift key down to select all of them, and then pick the check mark so that they're all selected. I'll go ahead and pick OK, and now I'll have all of these mass floors. Once you have the mass floors, you're ready to go to Massing in Site and use here the floor tool to place the floor by face. Select all of the floors. If I type PP, I can get my properties back. I can change here the floor itself. If you wanted to have a different floor, duplicate and modify that floor. So I'll use the generic 12-inch and pick Create Floor. And now each one of those levels has a different floor, or a floor level. So I noticed in a different picture of this building, each one of the floors extends beyond the curtain wall. The floors themselves need to be increased in scale in order for them to stick out here beyond the curtain wall. So you can pick the floor and then pick Edit Boundary, and you see you get the purple sketch. You can then go to the viewer, and inside the viewer you'll be able to modify or scale that magenta sketch of that floor. So I'm going to use my Control key to select these two sides of the ellipse and then pick the Scale command. And one way of doing this is to pick in front of numerical and then establish for all the different floors how much bigger you want to make that. So I'm going to type in 1.1 next to Scale, and then left click someplace right in the middle of, or the center of the ellipse, and it kind of scales out proportionally from that center. And then click in space here, turn off the viewer, and pick the green check mark, and you'll see that now our floor is just a little bit bigger than the curtain wall will be. So I'll do this for a couple of them, and then we'll add them. So now that I have a few floors, I can see here that the glazing looks to be a little bit more vertical, but you can take a closer look if you'd like. So when in the Massing and Site tab, I click on Curtain System, I can pick here Edit Type and Duplicate, creating a new curtain system so that you can change the spacing. I'm going to change the spacing for the grid 1 at 5 and the grid 2 at something taller, like maybe 20. And if I pick Apply and OK, I can then select here the glazing or the glass and then pick Create System. once you place it, you can also select it and modify it in several ways, modifying the glass and adding mullions. Right now we just have here a sheet of glass. And you can change the spacing based on how far you determined that the floors would be. I think it's starting to look a little bit like it if we kind of rotated it this way or orbit this way. And now we should change the material for the glass. We still need to put it on the back side. Right now we don't have glass on the back side. I'll turn the mask off by clicking here, Show Mask, by View Settings. If it doesn't turn off, then you'll have to type in VG and uncheck masks so that it does turn off. And now, see, I'll be able to turn it back on and off using this drop down. So it's off now. You can see that I only put glass on one side. But if there are a couple different things I can do here. I can use the tab key to select just one panel and then change the material for this panel. If I pick edit type and change just the material for this type, then everything will change automatically. If I duplicate it, then I'll have to go back and select everything and make sure here in this drop down that only the curtain panels are selected so that they will change to my new duplicated glazing. But for this example, we'll just go ahead and change the material where it says material glass. We can change that to something else, a different type of glass. One way of doing it is to duplicate an already existing glass, or if you're changing or creating another material, you can use one of these defaults. You can right click and duplicate it and rename it. So I'll go back and click on this glass, right click and pick duplicate and call it something different, like glass tower or glass darker or whatever the material is. And now you have your own material that you're going to be able to use for this project. Now the graphics tab is for the shaded view, and again the appearance tab is for the realistic view and rendering. So if I wanted to have here a darker color for my glazing, I could click on a different color for shaded. If I want to change the appearance here, then I need to go to the appearance tab. At the bottom corner, I can click on this small square here and go to the appearance library and pick up glass and see all these different types of glass colors, different glass colors. In this drop down, you can change the thumbnails because I think that the default is the list view. So you can change that to thumbnails if you want to see it a little bit better. I might create here maybe a blue colored glass, and now it will be blue when I go to the realistic view or the rendering. So now that I have that set up, I can pick OK and pick OK again, and you'll see that it changes a little bit darker than the original. And if I change it to realistic, you'll see that that material that I used is applied. I didn't put mullions on yet, so in the architecture tab, I can pick up mullions. There are several different types of mullions that you can load here in the drawing, but I'll just go ahead and use this default. You can pick all grid lines and then click on the edge of the entire glazing. It'll pick up every line that's cut in that glass and put glazing on it. this looks a little high, so I can click on that system, pick edit type, and change the spacing to 10 feet and try it out and see how it looks. You can even change the floor color so that it looks more like this white floor on the tower. So you can select the floor, pick edit type, and change under edit for the structure the material. You can either insert a finish or you can change the actual structure. Select default, right click and pick duplicate, and then call this white floor or floor. I like to start with the finish itself. So floor tower, and then you can change the color if you'd like to something like white or a light gray. And then for the appearance tab, like we did before, you can click on this rectangle at the bottom and go to the appearance library and look for which type of flooring you'd like to use. You can take a look at what the finish ends up being and then pick OK and continue picking OK, and you'll see that it changes color to be a little bit closer to what you're looking for. Okay, one last thing, you can go to your graphic display options here at the bottom left and decide. And in the graphic display options, you can decide on your background whether you want to put a sky in the background. You can even put either a floor base or topography there. But the background itself, if you click on gradient, you can apply some kind of, at least some kind of gradient background. Sometimes you can pick up here a green or a blue for your sky and create these unique colors, or just keep it as here a light gray and blue background. It's your choice. If I turn the shadows on, we're starting to build those features that make the building look similar to this. Okay, have fun. Let me know if you need help. Those are the basic tools to use to create several of these projects in creating a mass model and loading it and applying faces.